All right, welcome back. We are COMP1116. That's game programming 3 in the fall 2025 semester at Georgian. And it's week 13, part 1 of our broadcast and recording. I wanted to say winter because it's so cold out there today. But this is a new piece of, prep that I've put together this week. Didn't have this the last time I did this course because this course was offered in the winter and not in the fall. And in winter, we have a different schedule because of Rise. So a little bit, I'll have to say, it's a little bit, untested. So we'll see if we can get through it in the hours that we have together. Let's see how it goes. So let's talk about our schedule. We're sitting at the second last week of semester. It's like the last teaching week officially. Here we are. And next week we have our final test. And our final test is going to be largely based on the project we've been working on here, the third person perspective game. We're going to add some stuff to it. That's what we're going to do. And again, it's going to be in person only. So I think we're going to get together, and I'm going to give you the document. It's going to be kind of the protocol, the format is going to be very similar to what we've seen before, right? So you're going to get a document, you're going to go through it, and basically you have your just under 3 hours because you're going to get about two. It's going to be billed for about 2 hours to finish it off. If you've done all your in-class exercises and you've been attending class regularly, it should be doable. If you haven't, it'll be challenging because that means that you're going to be seeing stuff you've never seen before, and then you're going to be asked to add things to things you've never seen before. So that's really challenging. But that's really it in a nutshell. That's what you're going to start off with, and so that's what's happening next week. It's worth 20% of your final grade. So please make sure you're there. 20 minutes if you're late, 20 minutes for your class, like I said before, or anything like that. After 20 minutes, I will shut the doors. So that's what's happening there. So please be aware that that's happening. And for the most part, there are no makeup tests. So this is it. So if you don't attend next week, I feel for you. Hopefully you're going to be there, and I'm going to see everybody. This will be the last week we're together before Christmas break, and then we'll be all back together in the new year. So with a lot of new things coming up. Like I said, there's going to be 3 courses that I'll be hosting for you guys, all on Unreal Engine. One of them will be an extension of this course, which will be Game Engines 2, is what it's called right now. And then there'll be 2 other ones, a multiplayer course where we're learning how to use Unreal Engine to create a multiplayer game. Another project will be given out for that one. And then we'll be learning some steering behaviors and pathfinding in AI all of next semester. And we'll be doing that from scratch. So we'll actually be creating a project. I'll give you a starter, but for the most part, we'll be doing a lot of that work right out of the box and working with kind of a mix of blueprints and C++ in that course. So very challenging and interesting. And I think for those 3, you'll have enough that at the end of next semester, I truly believe that you'll be set to move forward with anything you want to do, at least as a starting Unreal Engine developer. All right, but what are we doing today? So today we are adding an attribute component to the base character. We've done attribute components before in the first half, so this is kind of a redo. Some of the stuff we've been doing this second half is a redo of the first half, but all in C++, and that was my intent. This should say ICE 12. I'll be okay. So that's what's happening there. And then we're adding health, max health, stamina, which is new, and max stamina. And the reason why we're adding stamina and max stamina is because right now, when we bring up our project, the character can dodge as much as they want, and they have invulnerability frames, and their invulnerability frames makes them almost impossible to kill if you're careful enough and if you're quick enough. If you've modified your project for ICE 11 so that the character moves quicker, and we'll do that. I'll kind of patch up that for you guys. I'll show you what I did, my solution. so when we patch that up together, you'll see that the character can be very quick at dodging and evading. And I think that's something that we got to talk about. Adding a health bar to the enemy and the player. So there's a couple of really in-depth processes there. So one is creating the actual health bar widget for the enemy, which is something we've done before last first half of semester, right? And you should have done this already in another way for Steve's class, which is, I believe, something you've been working, you know how to do. Then creating an overlay for the player. And the overlay for the player is something, again, we've done before in the first half. But again, all of this is going to be put together in C++. Adding death montages. And death montages, not just that, but as well as death poses, right? So you have a death montage, it'll do, it'll drop down, but then you want to stay in that pose for the entire way. And how do you create those? So we're going to make those little death poses where the character stays dead, whether it's an enemy or whatever. And then, so that's what we're talking about there. Okay, so stuff you need to know for next week, like I said, is everything we've done for from week 8 to 13. These weeks, these 6 weeks. So those things are going to be, because you're gonna get a starter that is, again, eerily similar to what you have now, right? So I mean, I think those things are, you have to kind of have worked your way through most of the examples so that you're comfortable with C++ and Unreal Engine, and there will be some of that on the test. Okay, so let's begin by adding the attribute component. But before we get there, of course, we need a project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a project that I copied from last week. I just copied ICE 11 because my project was working into ICE 12. That's what I've done there. And now I'm just going to launch the Visual Studio component to see how that is all working out. So I also invite you to do the same. If you already have a working version of your ICE 11, then you're good. If you don't, then you can always download my version of ICE 11 and start from there. And you can do that from DevOps, right? So that's what I recommend you do. Again, please do not download ICE 12 because I think that would be just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense. You won't learn anything. So that's what is done here. Just going to close this off here. So as soon as this loads, and again, I love ReSharper for its ease of use and the tooling and everything else you get from it. And there's stuff about it that just drives me crazy, like the load times. And ReSharper takes a while to kind of power up, if you will. So that's what's happening here. That's what's taking so long. There we go. You can see it's synchronizing my project, but I'm going to press Control F5 anyway, because again, whenever I copy my project from one folder to the other, as you will do next week for your final test, you always want to test it. You want to test it out and make sure it works for you, because something that works for me may not work exactly the same for you. So and again, for your final test next week, you could do it on your own laptop if you want. You could do it on the machine in front of you, the one that's in the lab, but we will do it. And again, the plan for now is to do it in person. The reason why I say for now is it really depends on our lovely weather system. Like today, it's just one of those whirling dervishes of insanity outside my window, right? There's like just so much, wind and snow that's coming down. Like we're talking, I don't even know why the school buses aren't canceled in my area. It's really quite interesting. It's a winter wonderland out there. So hopefully it won't be like that next week, and then we'll get together in person. If it is weird, I mean, we'll do what we have to do, right? The show must go on. So yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So it's like it's pretty bad, Griffin. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's like it gets to be pretty crazy, but it is what it is. Barrie is actually worse, I think, than where I am. But that's to be determined. Good news about other things in the news. A couple things that I have to mention. I'm not sure if you saw the Discord notification that I asked Wallace to put a notification up on Discord for UB Next Toronto, UB Toronto campus. So they are hosting today at 12. So after your class, which you guys can go to, because we finish at 11, you guys can go to, I got an email from them today or yesterday, which was, hey, by the way, we're hosting a virtual encore. Meet the Studio Series VFX presentation tomorrow. That's what they said, Thursday, December 4th at 12 p.m. And we really appreciate it if you share it with your students, kind of thing. And so that's what we did. So it is detailing the Ubisoft Toronto Next competition that's happening, where they hire not just VFX artists but programmers and all that stuff. So I'm not sure if you guys have the link, but take a look at the announcements on Discord, and Wallace has posted a link to join, and I highly recommend you do so if you can. I know you guys have class with Connor, if I'm not wrong, but if you guys are remote, I might think about double dipping. Is that bad? I don't know, but that's what I would think about doing. All right, let's see here. We got our lovely character right here. She is right. And our lovely character has attack ability, so she can attack, right? And she's attacking so slow. Oh my God, right? It's like the slowest attack ever. And like I said last week, your job for in-class exercise 11 was to make this a little bit quicker. Even multiplying her by like 1.5 is just much better. Like I think that's what I would go with it. I think 1.5 is a good rate scale that I would use for her overall attack montage. I'm not sure what numbers you use, but that's what I would use. So that's the first thing. So 1.5. I don't think I would go higher than that. Just going to get rid of the enemy here just for a second. And the other thing that I would do is modify the dodge montage. I think also it's pretty slow. So let's see how that looks. So you can see that that is quite slow, right? And I think if you multiply that by 1.5, then you can see that, she can quickly dodge out of the way this way, which is a little better than what I would say before. So again, that's what I would do. I would kind of multiply that by 2 or 1.5, not 2. She's probably too big. So that's the second thing that I would do. So it makes her a little bit quicker. The other thing I said that you had to do was add in another enemy. So I'm just going to copy this enemy and then just pull them across. Again, I'm going to use Alt drag, right? So if I just select them and Alt drag, and I kind of said you can put them around the house. That's what I said for this one. So I'm going to put them just like way back here. So it's kind of opposing ends of the spectrum here. And what I'm going to do also is grab all of these things. So if you've done this already, that's awesome. But I'm going to grab all these things here, these control points. And then what I'm going to do is also at a very high level here, Alt drag, so I can have those. So that's all you had to do is kind of drag those out there, and then of course make it all work, which I'm going to do in a second. So that's the first thing. So I kind of make it patrol around the house, this little hut, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to also move these a little bit closer so that they're just, around here, and then make sure that they're all pointing to the right location. So that one is there. I think this one belongs to that place right there, something like that. Okay. There's a patrol around the house, and then now we have to set this one up. So this guy, he's going to have his patrol target is going to be this patrol point right here, patrol point 8. This one, I'm just going to make it so the next patrol point, just to make sure it's the one, it says patrol point 5. It's probably right, but let's just check it. So we're just going to go this one here. That's patrol point 5. Patrol point 5 is going to have patrol point 6. I think this is the one, yeah. And patrol point 6 is going to have patrol point 7. Patrol point 7 should be patrol point 8. And it is, so we're good to go. So I think those are the things that I first started with. Also, the character, when they get hit, the enemy, I talked about how they are very aggressive right now in the way they work. And I think what I like to do is when they get hit in their get hit implementation and on the C++ side, that's what I said last time, So if I was to look at the enemy for a second here, enemy CPP, then, and if we look at their get hit implementation, here it is, right? Right now, it's just like, well, if I detect the player, so if I get hit as an example by the player's been detected. That's all I say. I'd like them to stumble a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, just very simply, I'm going to say something like, clear, kind of like the attack timer. That's what I like them to do. So they're not going to be able to attack right away. It'll kind of delay them, just even that, just by doing this, clear attack timer. Then the player detected, which means they'll start moving towards the player, and then we'll start the patrol time. Start, kind of like the, not attack timer, start the patrol timer is what I'm going to do. So that way, if they are, sorry, it's not the patrol timer, it's check patrol target. I think it's what it would be. So, the clear attack timer, the player is detected. So if we follow through this logic, player detected says clear patrol timer, and then the patrol target is the main character, the combat target is also the main character, and then we're going to move to target. So if I go to move to target, let's see if we follow through this, right? This example, move to target, that's all it does. So then the enemy would move closer. When the enemy is within acceptance radius, which happens because of the on action radius overlap, if the main character is, the other actor, and if the combat target, if they have a combat target, we're going to clear the patrol timer and we're going to switch our enemy state to attacking and it'll attack. So this will just work fine, just to have this clear attack timer and then player detected. But clearing attack timer is good. The other thing is that the attack timer itself is something that you have to look through. So if I kind of jump down to the start attack timer, the attack timer is 1.25 seconds, that means every second and a quarter, it's going to attack again, every interval, right? So that's going to be like 1, 2, 3, and that's how fast it'll attack, like that, right? You can make it so it attacks less quickly. So you can even reduce this to something like 2. It's every 2 seconds, right? So it's like kind of a slower attack. The slower you make this, the lower level you can consider your enemy. Like your enemy kind of staggers back and then tries to attack you again. You can see enemies like this, even though in last week's kind of little demo video that we made, you can see how slow the orcs were attacking back when they were attacking the main character, right? So you can actually make it even slower than this, where they kind of take time to recover, when they've been hit, kind of thing. So, so I've kind of done these, and again, you can do clear attack timer anywhere you want. Clear attack timer, what it does, if you think about it, is it just stops the enemy from attacking temporarily, and then it does something else. So you can do a lot of stuff here, and again, just these 2 things might be enough. Let's see how that works. And again, to test this out without reloading the project, it's Control-Alt F11. Control-Alt F11 will rebuild the project without actually having to, close Unreal Engine and reopen it. Now, sometimes if there's enough changes, it won't work. It'll crash. It'll basically say like red, no, it won't work. And in that case, you need to restart. But especially when you make structural changes to a class or something, like you remove a property or you add a property to a class, you add a method or something weird like that. You change like the actual shape of the class itself. You'll have to restart Unreal Engine for that a lot of times because it just doesn't have the capability to knit everything together. You can also see that like how compiling takes time too. Maybe I could have just closed Unreal Engine and started it again and it would be fine. But you can see how much quicker this is than doing that, right? For the most part. So we want to see this green message here. Green is good, is what I always say, right? So back to Unreal Engine now, we should be able to have that behavior, right away. So again, we dodge. You can see that we're much faster dodging now. I'm going to grab my sword. There he is. And then let's see how I can dodge out of the way, right? You can see that that is effective now compared to what we did before. Now, if I hit the enemy, right? Let's see if I can actually hit him. There we go. Oh, there we go. He staggers back, and then I can kind of get out of the way, right? So he staggers back, and I think that he kind of runs at me right away, right? So You can do a lot of stuff here. Like another thing to do would be to add a delay, like I mentioned in the last time, like actually adding a delay for the clear patrol timer, right? So we're inside of here as well. Lots of stuff you can do. Like for example, on action radius overlap. I'm in his action radius. Here he clears the patrol timer, so he's not patrolling anymore. Kind of thing. And he's in attack, and he's going to do the attack. This attack right here. Um, so one thing you could do instead of doing this, because it starts the attack timer, kind of thing. If the enemy state is already in attacking, well, attack is what this says instead of start the attack timer every single time. So it'll attack and then attack, right? If the enemy is not already attacking, that's what this means. You could comment this out, and if you were to do that, I'm going to show you this also as another option. Let's comment that out, and again, Control S and then Control Alt F11 to test that out, right? To really do a quick rebuild, because what that did is made it so the enemy attacks quicker, as an example. So that's something that because it'll attack first instead of waiting to attack when you're there. It'll attack first. This way, it'll wait to attack for 2 seconds and then attack you. So it'll give you that little reprieve, because it's imagine having 2 of these guys, right? It's like you're going to be like pummeled, right, by these guys when there's more than one. So you can make these micro adjustments. You can also make your own timer. So you can set a timer that's basically says, we can call it a wait timer as an example, which is like, or a recovery timer, if you will. And you could add recovery time. So how much time do they take to recover from a wound, like when they got hit, as an example. And it can be half a second. It can be, well, whatever, right? But it'll be enough that things kind of are different in terms of gameplay. And this is why I wanted you to experiment last week a little bit. So again, let's try this out again. So now even everything is different, right? So, he's in his attack thing. Notice he'll pause, and then, so I can kind of move away. And then if I kind of attack him, actually get him. There we go. And that seems to be the ability for me to dodge out of the way is also something I want to remedy today because, he's unlimited dodging, right? That's what he's doing. Right, there he is. So he's kind of attacking me. And then I can just keep dodging out of the way. And I'm not going to be hit by him or the other. Oh, God. 2 guys is just nuts, right? So, so yeah, I'm in trouble. Look, I can't even dodge when I'm being hit a bunch of times. So again, these things are the things that we're going to try and remedy, and we're going to do this today, right, with some of this stuff. All right, so we know the project works. So I'm going to file, save all, and close it down for a second. And then now DevOps, let's put that up. So I'm going to kind of go to terminal. And then from there, let's initialize everything. I'm making a new Git repository locally. Can't see what I'm typing, but I'm hoping it's good. And then meanwhile, while I'm waiting for that, I will go here to DevOps. There it is. And then pull up a new project that I'm going to put together, or a new repo in my project. Might be okay. Let's make a new repository. We'll call this ICE12. And no readme. Oh, where is it? There it is. See the button. All right, and I'll grab this stuff. I'll go back to Visual Studio, and I typed it somewhat right. And I'm going to do git branch -m main, and then I will copy that stuff in there and push it up to DevOps, and that would be the start of what we're doing. So again, I did that all with with the Unreal Editor closed. I don't think it's a bad thing to do it that way. I think a lot of times we have files that are open in Unreal Engine. You'll also notice if you ever did this with Unity, like putting it up on GitHub, a lot of times Unity locks files too. So it's the way to go. I mean, one day, if you're as a developer, you will learn Perforce. Perforce being the other, I would say the third kind of version control system that you could use, and probably the most common one that's used in the industry today, Perforce, more than GitHub or DevOps or anything like that. It's just that you need a Perforce server. So that's why we don't have one. All right, so that is here. So there we go. So that's up on DevOps now, and I'm just going to do Control F5 and start adding components to everything that we want to do. And the first component we want to add is the attribute component, which is based on the actor component superclass. So we've kind of done this actor component before, but we've never done it like in C++, right? Not the same way, not in the first half. So let's just wait for Unreal Engine to load, which is what's going to happen in a second. And again, if you notice what we've done here, we just clear the patrol timer and then, if combat target and start the attack timer. Starting the attack timer takes 2 seconds, kind of thing. Clear the patrol timer is something that we're going to do this if the combat target exists here, and hopefully that's going to be good. And then check patrol target isn't another bad way of doing it. Like, for example, if I don't have a combat target, then clear the patrol timer, and then check the patrol target. But that means you're going to lose interest and go back to patrolling. And I don't think I want to do that with an enemy. I don't know if I want them to lose interest, unless you die or something. Okay, so here we are here in Unreal Engine, and I want to go to Tools, New C++ class, and I want to go down to Actor Component. This is the one I want to use here. Click Next, and then we're going to call this Attribute Component. All right, Attribute Component, like this. We've done this before, and this is not new, but it's like now we're doing it all in C++. So I'm going to do that, and then click Create Class, which is going to do that for me. So hopefully you're able to do that. Does it work off of Git too? No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, Perforce works on its own thing. It's using it's a whole other way of doing version control. So Perforce, what it does is it uses a check-in, check-out system. So when you are accessing a file or files, you've checked them out, so to speak. And when you have those files, other people can't use them. So if you're in a shared project environment, you're the only one that can modify those files at the same time. You won't be able to do that. Like, other people can't modify the file you're looking at, as an example. At least if it's in a live server environment. If you've made a copy of the depot, they're called depots, not repos, right? So kind of a little different. You can do that, and you can merge things back in. The merge process is a lot. Is it more expensive? I think it's a little different. The whole process is very different than everything else, right? So that's what it is. We're just waiting for this. Let's see how this compiles. So you have to wait for this to compile, even if you, like, for example, if you see here in Visual Studio, it says, do you want to, kind of reload the project? Wait till this patch is done. Again, if we don't do that, and if we reload, sometimes the project gets out of sync, I find, with stuff. So, with the engine. So let's see what happens there. All right, so here we have the attribute component.h, and what I always do is clean up. So I'm just going to clean up my boilerplate comments. It's like this. Okay, when it allows me, this is again ReSharper's fault, I swear, not my computer. There we go. It's a lot going on, right? So it's all right, there we go. Just gonna kill those things. So boilerplate comment's gone. And I'm also gonna move this tick component into the public section up here, because that's what I do. Again, I've talked to other developers actually about that develop with Unreal Engine, and they some of them disagree with me. They're like, no, that's really useful, because you leave, kind of the components that are virtual up at the top there. That's what they do, and then all your stuff is at the bottom. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't like that. just two parts to take care of. And they're like, yeah, I understand, but I mean, and other people are like, we don't care how you do it, kind of thing. It doesent really matter to us. If I'm working with somebody and they make it work and their code is clean, I'm okay, kind of thing. So it really depends on the I guess the house you're working with there. All right, so there it is. So I've cleaned that up a little bit just to get moving, and then back to this. So we've kind of got this done, and I want to start off with this. It says in the public section. I want to add this, and I want to do that. So I've kind of got this on uh, kind of Blackboard for you. But I want to talk about this. So what this is going to do is it does a couple things here, right? So I've got receive damage, use stamina, get health percent, get stamina percent, is alive. I want to check to see if the character's alive. We're prepping for the death montage. And regen stamina. So regen stamina allow us to regenerate stamina over time. We also have a couple of force inline that there's a couple of them that are missing yet because we're having this thing. So one second. All right, so we've got this, and then the next part is adding in this part, which is in the protected sections. We'll talk about that. So these are all the properties. Oops, I almost didn't get everything. These are all the properties we're adding in here. And what I want to talk about these properties here. So we got health, max health. We know we need those because then we can kind of figure out what your percentage is going to be. Because really percentage is health over max health. Stamina and max stamina, same thing. We have a dodge cost. How much stamina is your dodge going to eat, every single time from your stamina line, right? And then at the end, stamina regen rate is the amount of stamina you regen over time per frame. This is a lot. 8 is like, it's almost like you're never going to stop having stamina. We'll reduce this amount probably later when we do our testing, but this is just to see if, you kind of do this, right? So that's the first part, and that is everything we need. We need to add all these things here, receive damage, use stamina, and so on. We're going to add that in by going up to the top where our U attribute component is here, and we're going to say generate definitions. Again, this only works if you have ReSharper, otherwise you have to do one at a time. So here are all the ones that I have, finish. So there, it'll add all that into my CPP on that CPP side. Um, so, so this is that part. And then what we're going to do now is go through them one at a time. So what I want to do for receive damage is, that's the first one we're going to kind of do. And when we're having this component come up, receive damage will actually take whatever the damage is and will clamp the health between health minus damage is the amount. That's what we're clamping. 0 to max health. So it won't go below 0 as an example. Receive damage also could be negative. Um, and then, you can actually gain something. So for example, if we wanted to create like a health potion or something else like that, then what we could do is we could receive negative damage and it would kind of push things up, right? So there's ways of doing that. Or you can create another, instead of receive damage, you can make something else that says like, recover health or something. Use stamina. Same idea here with that one. So what we want to do is stamina is clamped, right? So you can't go lower than the stamina you have, right? Get health percent. We've seen this before. This is just going to basically divide health over max health. And it'll be the same thing for stamina. So again, stamina over max stamina gives you a percentage, right? So that's why it's a float that we're returning. And then is alive basically checks to see, this is really kind of a utility function. Instead of you doing, um, get my health and then is it greater than 0, it'll just do that for you. And so you don't have to go attribute health greater than 0. You just have to say is alive, yes or no, kind of thing. And it returns a Boolean already. Regen stamina, what it's going to do is it's also going to max, kind of math clamp, right? That's what it's going to do. But instead, what it's going to say is basically your stamina is equal to stamina plus your regen rate times delta time. This is going to be used in a tick function as an example. So in the tick function, it's going to basically multiply by delta time. So every frame or so, you're going to get a little bit of stamina regen. That's a lot if it's 8, a lot, because you don't have that much, right? And then it goes from 0 to max stamina. So you'll get to max stamina pretty quick. So that is your attribute component in its entirety for the most part. We won't have to modify this, I don't believe, at all for the remainder. So this is the stuff that we have. And again, there's nothing in here other than primitive variables. So we don't need to do things like forward declarations and that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, we're pretty good to go. Okay, so that is, I'm just cleaning up some of these extra spaces that we don't need, just so that way it is. So that's the attribute component. Okay, yay. Next, what we want to do is we want to add the attribute component to base character, because all characters will have attributes, enemies, and our main character. So what I want to do, just to be safe, is I'm just going to close down the editor here, because again, I don't want to cause any side effects with what I'm doing. So I'm just going to close down attribute component now. We don't care about that. And I'm going to open up base character. Again, I want to try and work with one class at a time. So that's where I want to go with this. So here we are, base character, and it says basically add this attributes property to the protected section. So protected section is pretty full. You can see we're getting full. We'll add it at the bottom for now. So now when we do this, attribute component does not compute. We want to add this as a forward declaration. So that's going to be up here, but we don't like that. We'll just put that inside of the last area here. There's attribute component. So again, we're forward declaring it again because we don't want to include it here, just like we normally do. Nothing new there. So again, what we're doing is we're putting it into character attributes category. That's how it's going to appear. It's of type attribute component, the one we just made. It's called attributes. And we're using a T object pointer as a wrapper so that we have memory control and garbage collection built into our reflection system. All right, there we go. So that's it. So that when we do that in the base character.cpp now, what we want to do is modify the constructor function so we declare it. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then it won't appear. So inside base CPP, we're going to go to the constructor function, which is this. Again, the constructor function is a function that has the same name as the class itself, right? In this case, a base character. And notice that we're just adding the attributes component at the bottom, and we don't have to attach them because they are a component that does not have any kind of visual part to it. Here, we're just going to add it in, attribute component up here. I just did it automatically with Visual Studio, but you can also just do an include. And so then it gets added in when the character is created. Once the character is added to the scene, the level, then this default sub-object has been added, and it'll be added to the lower part of your components tab that you'll see. So that's the one thing they do. Now we're good. We can kind of do a Control F5, and let's see if that attribute component is both in the enemy and in the character, which is what we want to see. And this is our first part. And if it is, then we'll put this up on DevOps. So that's the first part that we want to try and get going on this one. So attribute component is going to be very central. Now there is a larger world out there. And that larger world is the gameplay ability system, or GAS as it's called. It's the Unreal's version of a complete system or framework. If you have many complex abilities and you have a lot of different effects that you do, like for example, if you want to do things like magic or some weird type of effects, and instead of making, or if you want to do a role-playing game, with abilities and all that kind of stuff, they have an ability system out of the box. Now it is not simple. It is complex. It's got lots of moving parts. It's all written in C++. You can't do it with blueprints for the most part. But the beautiful thing about the ability system is it has everything that you need, everything you could possibly think of. From an effect to something else. It's just hard to learn. So, but they do have something like that. Okay, so let's go back to here. Now I'm going to go into blueprints. I'm going to go to character, and I'm going to look at main character. And what I'm looking for is really on the left-hand side here, inside of the components, tab here, attributes. And if you notice on the right, you have health and max health. They're all 0. And what we can do is I've given you a guide for how much I think they should be. I think it should be 100, 100, 120 for stamina around, I think is a right number. So something like 100, 100, 120, 120. Regen rate is 8 right now. We'll see how that changes later on. But that's where we start. And then compile and save that one. And then I also want to bring up the enemy. Let's do that. So blueprints, enemy, and here's our enemy right here. And then in the enemy again, I'm going to look at the attributes. And on the right, you're going to see that they have 0. So I recommended 50 and 50, and maybe we'll go there later on. For now, I'm going to make it 100. And the reason why is our health bar, if I put it lower, you won't be able to see that it's there. So 1550 means like 1 or 2 hits. So, sorry, 3 hits, because we do 20 damage right now. The sword does 20 damage, right? So again, if you want to see that, you can look at your items, weapons, sword. So this is the thing that I want you guys to see. And now on the right, if I go combat for the sword, then you can see that there's nothing, right? But if I wanted to look at something like damage, right, you can see that damage is 20. That's item properties, 20. So 20 is for all swords. Anytime you pick up a sword, you get 220 damage. You could also make it so that we can make a copy of the sword. There might be a sword for the enemy and there might be a sword for the player, and or different kinds of weapons we could have with different damage amounts. Okay, but for now, that's the damage. One thing also is this damage is fixed. You always do 20, as an example, with every hit. There's lots of ways to, contrive variable damage that you do every single time instead of the exact same damage. And then you have some kind of like, pop-up that basically shows you, like the, kind of how much damage you're doing every single time you hit, like in kind of a 3-dimensional format. You could do that too. So that is, you can see that that is something you can do. So right now we do 20 damage. So if we do 20 damage and the enemy has like 100 health, that means 5 hits and they're dead. They're dead. 5 total hits, where it's, if I hit them on a backswing, that also counts somehow. They're right there, right? So, so it's not that many, but it's still a lot. And we want to start off with this, but we will, kind of fix this. Also, dodge for the enemy, they don't have a dodge cost, so it's 0. And they don't have stamina regen, so it's 0. So we can put those where they are, compile and save. So now we've set up the both of those things. Now it's time to create a health bar, but before we get there, let's put it up on DevOps. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio, and I go View Terminal. And again, I don't have it closed, but for now it's okay. Git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added attributes component. So we did. Git push. All right, so that's the first thing we're doing today, adding an attribute component. Okay, next, I want to start thinking about the enemy's health bar. Okay, are you with me, by the way? Are we good? Am I too fast? I mean, all I did was add an attribute component, but I wanted to make sure you guys are good. All right, so you're good. Excellent. Enemy's health bar. So I want to do this next, and what I want to do with this one is we want to make a blueprint portion first, right? And then we'll follow up with what it's going to look like. So we've kind of done this before, but first what I want to do is organize myself. So here I want to make a new folder under blueprints called HUD. So new folder, HUD. And inside my HUD folder, I want to add a new user widget. Again, you can do that by going to user interface, widget blueprint. Right here it is. And it's going to, basically, there's a lot of classes you can choose from. I'm going to choose user widget, and I'm going to call this WBP underscore health bar. Okay, health bar here. And once we've done that, we can bring it up. Now, what we need is to put in a canvas component because that is the first thing we'll add in. Now you don't always need that. There's other ways to create, and we'll see next semester. Sometimes we won't use canvases, but here is the canvas component that houses our health bar. And inside the canvas itself, I want to put in a progress bar. So a progress bar is right here. So I'm going to drop it in there. And the progress bar, that's going to be our health bar. So let's call this health bar, right? And it's variable. Let's make sure you check is variable at the top. And what we want to do is position it. So it's going to be, the position is going to be in the center. So we're going to change the anchor to the center. There we are. It'll be zeroed out. So if you go just choose these two things, that'll be centered. And we also want to make it aligned middle. So middle aligned, so 0.5, 0.5. The size is 125 by 12. So 125 by 12. These sizes I've tested. That's why I'm making them so small. And if I zoom in, you can see what this thing will look like so far. It looks kind of like this. I know we have our little gizmo here that's in the middle, but just so you can see this, I'm just zooming in. So that's the first part. First part is, hey, here you are. And that's the way we want to put it. Next part is, once we have that, there is some stuff we're missing. And one thing we're missing for the health bar is this textures pack, right? So we can download that. I'm going to come back to this. I kind of jumped the gun here. But I'm going to kind of close Unreal Engine for a second. Save all. And on Blackboard, okay, let's go to Blackboard for a second. Let's refresh this. Here's probably our first commit there. You can see your history, right? On Blackboard, if you go to either ICE 12 or into health bars and death montages, or kind of our week 13 content, you'll see that there is a textures.zip. Please download this, right? This is our zip archive. I've already got it, of course, here. So I'm just going to go into my documents and grab it. And it is right here. So I'm going to copy that. And I want to go into downloads, and where it belongs, it's a very specific place to put it. If I go to my project, into content, assets, inside here, this is where it belongs. So I'm going to right click and paste it in, and then that's the zip archive. Again, this is Unreal Engine editor closed. And then I'm going to use 7-zip to extract it here. It's important to do it this way. Again, I don't recommend using anything else other than 7-zip. Some people used their Windows extractor, and then they get like, weird issues because of like the mark of the web is on that thing. So I'm going to go here and get rid of that. I don't need the zip archive anymore. And this is my textures that I'm going to use. We're going to use these for the health bar to make it fancy looking. All right, so now that we've done that, we can run our Unreal Engine again right from here. Let's actually add that in. So let's say git add dot, git commit -m. We'll say added texture pack for health bars. I should have done that earlier. And let's health bars. Why is it not doing it? Oh, I used added texture pack for health bars. I'll be okay. Git push. Okay, so that's that. I wanted to do that because we haven't had a chance to do that. And then I'm going to control F5. So I can start that off again. I'll go back to that. So again, I'm going to make it so it's a little bit fancy health bar, and I put the texture. Whenever you extract, stuff from a project, instead of migrating, you don't have to migrate all the time if it's the same Unreal Engine version. You don't do that. Migration only happens if you're going to go from, let's say, a previous version to a new version. That's how it normally happens, right? Now, if you're in the same version of Unreal Engine 5, you're a lot of times mostly good to go. If you're going from version 4, like if you have an old marketplace asset, now fab, that you're going from, that might not work. So back into health bar, WPP health bar. So again, widget blueprint is what that stands for. I have my health bar. I'm going to click onto it again, and I'm going to continue working with the health bar. So back to this. So I've downloaded this, and now what I want to use is alignment background image tint is 1110. So again, this is an important piece. So background image tint. So if I look at the health bar, and here's alignment and here's style. So if you open this up, you can see this background image tint is here, and notice it's 1111. You want to put this 0, right? So it kind of makes it so that the background image is got 0 opacity. So it's kind of transparent. That's what we're talking about here. All right. And then the fill image is what we want to change. And the fill image should be medium health fill, this one. Medium health fill. So if I go back to that and I change that, so if I kind of look for that, now you'll see that that is available because we just downloaded that texture pack, and that is the medium health fill. You want to make the percentage 1 so it'll fill it in, but it looks blue. And the reason why it looks blue is because further down there is a tint, fill, color, and opacity to blue. We don't want to make it blue. I want to make it so it's 1, 1, 1, and this will make it the color that it is, which is red. So now again, there's different ways of doing this. Okay, so you could make it so that let's go back to this. There's different ways of doing this thing. Like you could make it so that instead of red, it's green, and then it kind of becomes more red. There's 2 layers to it. The front part is red, and the background the background is red, and the front part is green. And as you go back, you see more red and less green. Lots of ways of doing this, but I think this is okay too. All right, and one thing that we also have is this fill direction. So right now it is the bar fill type is left to right. Let's make this one fill from horizontal from the center, right? So fill from the center. So it's going to fill from the middle, right? Fill from center horizontal, right? And the last part is, so these are all the things that we did for this thing. Now there's another component to this, which is kind of an overlay. So on top of that, there's that fancy overlay. It's not just a health bar, but something else that kind of, makes it look like a divider. And again, it's another image. So we'll just grab an image, drag it in, right? And this image will configure like the other one. So anchor will be the middle. That's important too. So this will be the same thing, position 0, 0 for the image. 125 and 12, you can see that the image is going to be on top of this one. We also want to overlay it, in the center, like this. So you can see that overlay kind of overlaps our health bar for now. Okay, image doesn't have to have a special name. It doesn't have to be invariable at all. Next part is the brush image is medium enemy front. So again, what I would do is if I go to brush, then medium enemy front. So if I type medium enemy front, there it is. And you can see that what this thing does, if I click away, is it kind of adds this dividing line and kind of a nice border around the health bar. So your health bar should kind of look like this. That's what the health bar is going to look like for the enemy now. So that's all it is. Very simple. And so it's going to kind of come in from the sides as opposed to grow from the left like you normally see. So compile and save. Different ways of doing it, right? We don't always want to be the same. So now that we have this, we have our health bar, and we want to, we can't control it. It's very difficult for us to control it right now, unless we want to do everything on the blueprint side. I want to avoid blueprints because we've been using everything with C++ so far. So let's continue with using C++. And to do that, we need a superclass, because by default, this thing is a user widget on the top right corner. You can see that that's what this is. Okay, so compile and save. And what we want to do here is control it with C++. So first of all, let's put this up on DevOps. So we're going to say git add dot, git commit -n. We'll say added widget blueprint health bar. That's what we did. Okay, and then now that we've done that, we can close this down. We don't need it anymore. We don't need the sword. And I'm just going to close down these for now. But what we do need is another C++ class. So again, you can do it different ways. I can go here, and then I can right click and go and use C++ class. And what I want to think about is what I want to make now. So I want to make a user widget in C++, and this will be in all classes. So again, back to this, all classes. And if I search for user widget, there it is. So there's the user widget right here. So that's the one, that's the class that I want to use as a superclass. We're choosing from amongst superclasses already that have been defined to make our own class. So click next. And then we're just going to call this the health bar. So that's what we're going to do. So health bar. So it has a similar name. Like it's WBP health bar, and health bar should give you a clue of what's going to happen here. We're just going to inherit health bar, when we make our, kind of our widget. So click create class, and this is going to do the next part. Right. So what we want is we want to expose the health bar to C++ so that when the enemy gets hit in the get hit implementation, health bar can be updated. Okay, that's really what it is. All right, so if we don't do that, then there is no real way of doing it unless we have another function that we expose, on the blueprint side, or we use the get hit function in the blueprint side and don't use C++. So you can do it that way too. All right, so now that we've done that, I want to file, save all, close Unreal Engine, and then work in Visual Studio. There we are, reload all. It's given us a health bar.h and a health bar.cpp. We're going to clean this up like we've done before. So there we go. And this one. And in the health bar, we don't need a lot here. What we're looking for is simply this, which is the progress bar. We just want to reference the progress bar. So copy this. I'm going to go in here, and it's going to be in the public section. And we're going to call it progress bar. But guess what? The health bar knows nothing about progress bars. So what we want to do instead is we want to forward declare this. So we're going to say forward declarations, and we're going to say class U progress bar. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it won't know anything about it. A couple of things also, we're binding a widget, and whenever we bind a widget, we want to bind this progress bar. There's two parts to this, just to be clear. Again, I'm repeating myself because you may need this, as an example when you make widgets. Two parts. One part is you have to use this meta bind widget in your U property macro. Okay, it's very important to do that. Next, it doesn't have to be T object pointer. You could use a raw pointer if you want to, but the type of the object. So that means like I want you to think about this as a component that's inside of the widget. In this case, our progress bar has to match the thing that you're trying to sync up with, right, on the Unreal Engine side, and the name must be the exact same. So health bar. It can't be anything else. If it is, it will crash. It won't work. So those are the two things. So that is the binding. And once this is done, now we can kind of make this happen. So I'm going to say that's all we need. So Control F5. And all we're doing is we're just exposing. We're kind of making roots. All we're doing is we're planting roots in C++ for our, I always think about the editor as like up here and C++ is down here, like in the soil. And the editor is kind of like at the top. And then we plant roots in C++ from the editor, so that way we can communicate back and forth between the two systems. The Visual Studio on the back-end side, the editor on the front-end side. I always like to think about these as code behind files and the editor as kind of our views, right? So if I go back to this now, what we want to do is inside of Blueprints HUD, WBP health bar, this one, I want to open this up. And what I want to do is I want to go to the graph here. And on the left, you can see that there is a details panel. We want to click on class settings. We want to change from user widget to health bar. If you type in health bar, ours will come up. And if you click onto it, if I compile and save, then, and if nothing breaks, doesn't crash, it's a good sign that things are okay. You can also get rid of this. You don't need all that stuff in there. So you can really kind of clean up that event graph. We're not going to use it. Going back to designer, you can see nothing has changed here. So that's it. That's your connection to the, the health bar. So again, I'm going to close this off. We're not going to do this anymore. File, save all. And I want to put this up on DevOps again. So again, view, terminal, and I'm going to say git at dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added health bar user widget in C++. That's what we kind of did. Git push. All right, so we did that. That's nice. And the next part that we're going to do is we did all this. We want to make a new class, and we want to make a different thing now. So we added a health bar widget, but we want to float this thing above the enemy's head, and that is a widget component. Okay, let me remind you of what this looks like. So if I was going to go back to the editor, and let's suppose I bring up my enemy for a second. Here's my enemy. Then I could add in, if I type in a widget, you can see that there is a widget component that we could add in. If I hover over, it tells you that. So it's a widget, right? So, and what this will do is it'll allow us to draw something, some kind of user interface, that follows the user somehow. It could be in two different ways. If let's add it in. I'll show you what this looks like. So here's our widget. This is what it would be like. And if you see on the right, you'll see that the space is world space. If I go to viewport, right, it's just down here, and that's where it'll appear, widget. And I could right now, from a widget class perspective, kind of pull in my health bar. So this is what it would look like. So I could do this already, right? And that's what this looks like. So this is what I want to try and do, but I want to do this with C++. I don't want, because I'm doing everything with C++, I want to show you how to do this. And of course, what we want to do is eventually put it up above the character's head. And instead of making it world space means that we'd have to rotate this manually so that you would see it all the time. That's not a bad thing sometimes. We're going to do that in a future lesson together next semester, where we kind of billboard it towards the user as opposed to making it in screen space, because screen space means that you're always going to be able to see this. And to show you this, if I just did this, compile and save, this is the prototyping on the blueprint side. You can see how big it is. And what happens is it stays the same size, the screen space. So if I go way over here, like way out here, it's still that big, right? And if I go closer in, that's what it looks like, right? And that's really what his health bar will look like. So that's in screen space. And if you want that effect, and if I go behind the building here, and if I look through, notice how it's like visible even through the building. That's what screen space does. It kind of layers it on top of the screen. Almost like eye space is what I like to think about it as well, right? So that may not be the desirable effect. Today, that's going to be the desirable effect, but in the future, we may not want that. So that's what I want to do with C++. And so I want just to delete this one. Let's just move that. We don't want that right now. But that's kind of what it's going to look like. And for this, I need a new class. So again, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go down to classes for now, and right click, and we need to add a new C++ class. And this one will be a widget component. So again, all classes, if I type in widget, it'll be a widget component, this one, as opposed to a user widget. That's two different things. Okay, so widget component is what we want, right? And that's what it is. And we want to call this health bar component. So health bar component, there it is. Click create class. And this will give us more control again, as you'll see in a second. So again, lots of ways of doing this. Why? Because I can do it this way, but remember, what I want to do is control that health widget component from C++. So in order for me to control it, I need roots again in C++ from Unreal Engine. Instead of it being just in Unreal Engine's blueprints, then I can't control it in C++, right? I can control C++ from Unreal Engine, but I can't control Unreal Engine easily from C++ without hard coding anyway. So back to this. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to File, Save All, and I'm going to close down the editor again. And back into C++ here, let's do some reloading and saving and all that stuff. So here I've got my bare bones widget component. Now there's a couple things I have to mention here that we're going to have to do in this thing here. We're going to have to, once we start getting into widget components and that kind of stuff, and to make things work the right way, we need to add in a module We've been adding the AI module and we've added in other modules before, but now we need to add in another module for widgets, which is UMG. We're going to do that later. But for now, we're going to add this in. So what we want to do is we want to say that there's two parts. We want to have a function called, well, I'm just going to copy these two things here. We want to have a function called set health percent. And that's something we're going to do with our widget. We also want to forward declare the health bar because we don't know, we don't want that to be a thing. So we'll say forward declarations, right? So that's a health bar that we just added in. This is our own health bar. And so again, what we're doing is we're saying the health bar widget itself is going to be the health bar. That's the one that we're going to show, okay? Set health percentage is something that we're going to, we want to be able to do. And again, for this, I'm just going to generate definitions on this side here. And what we want for this one is I want to do all this. Let me talk about this in a second. Then we'll take a short break after this part. So it doesn't know about health bars. Let's add that in as an include. And the other thing that we don't know about is the health bar component. The progress bar. We don't know what that is either. So let's add that in. So those are the two things that we need for this one. So what it basically says is this: set health percentage. We get the percent, which is a float. Again, that would be like health over max health. And then we say have health bar widget is not null pointer, so we actually have it. If it is, then create it if it doesn't exist. So that's what will be like, we'll make it for the first time. So get user widget object, which is something that we're going to use, and we're going to cast our health bar as a widget. That's what it's going to be. And we're getting that from our components progress bar. From there, if the health bar widget does exist and it has a health bar, right? That means that we have this health bar widget has a health bar. The health bar being the underlying thing that's inside the health bar itself. The health bar, we want to set percent to whatever the percent is. So in many ways, this set health percent is a wrapper on the health bar itself. That's what we're doing. Because remember, health bar, if you look at healthbar.h, it has this. That's what it is, right? All right, and set health bar percent, because it's a progress bar, because the health bar is actually a progress bar, you can see that if I hover over, it says U progress bar. Progress bar has a built-in set percent function, which is what we're accessing here. That's what's happening there. Okay, this is great. Compile all, and again, I'm going to go view and terminal, and git add dot git commit -m. We'll say added health bar component. Health bar component. All right. So that is what's happening there. All right, and then in the enemy, I want to add it in to the enemy. All right, so enemy.h. Let's close some of the stuff off. What I like to do a lot of times is I want to right-click and then close all, and then just kind of pull up that one thing that I want. So I want to pull up the enemy H and CPP files. There we are. And this one goes inside of the protected section. So I'm going to copy this stuff and go in the protected section. I'll probably put it right at the bottom just because it's new for us for in-class exercise 12. There it is. And it doesn't know what the health bar component is, so we need to forward declare it, right? Again, all this does is it puts it up here, and I don't want it up there. I want it down here. It's just me being semantically, I just like that. That's just me, right? And that's what this is. So we've got that. It's in category UI. You can put it anywhere, any category you want. I just put it there. And then in the private section, we want to have two little utility functions that I want to use. I don't want the health bar to always show. I want kind of a minimalist user interface. And then what I want to do is when the enemies hit for the first time, then I want to show the health bar. And then if they're later on, what we can do is hide the health bar if they lose interest or after a certain amount of time if you're running away. Today, we're not going to hide it. Once it's shown, it's going to show forever. But, we can always modify that. We have the control. So here I'm going to define those two things, hide and show, which are going to be here. And what we want to do with the hide and show is, here's hide, very simple, is what we're going to do here. We're going to basically say that, so here's health widget. The health widget, we don't know what that is. We need to add in health bar component. There it is. And once we've done that, we've got an include. And then what I want to do is basically do, if it's hiding, so if I hide the health bar, then we make visibility false, so we can't see it. It's there, you just can't see it. And then when we're showing it, we're going to make visibility true. So we're going to change just the visibility. And it's a little utility function to do that. Instead of saying get health bar from the enemy, from the health bar, set visibility to true. Instead of that, just use say show or hide health bar, and all that happens in here. Okay. And there we go. Now there's another way of doing it, which is like, you can make one function instead of two that basically says something like, health bar visibility. That's what you could say, health bar visibility. You could have called it that and then passed in a Boolean here to be true or false, and then it would modify these. But these are just very convenient. It's only a few lines of code, so it's okay. All right, so now that we've got that health bar visibility, then what we want to do is let's make some changes to base character.h to make this effective, right? Base character.h, we're going to add in a health damage, kind of amount. So let's do that. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to close down enemy for now because we're not working with that. So here's base character.h, right? And base character.h is in the protected section. We're going to add in this new virtual function. I want to talk about virtual functions for a second. Do you guys know what they are? If I mark a function as virtual, why would I care about that? Why would I mark a function as virtual? Anybody? Just going to define that for you right now. Andrew says, I don't know. It must be used by children. Well, yes. And what it means is we may override. That's what will be used. If we don't use it, if we don't include it, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that it's the ability for us to override that function in the children. So marking it as virtual allows us to use the override, and what it does, it allows us to change the way it would work differently for enemy and differently for the character, but we can still have the same function name. All right, so that's why. And so if I wanted to do something like, hit you with the sword could say both the enemy and the character have a handle damage function as an example when they take damage. So it's the same thing. It's actually good for because it's very common to both things. That's why we put it inside of the base character. So here all we're doing is we're handling damage by taking the damage amount, whatever that is. And if our player has attributes, character or enemy, then we want to use the receive damage function, which we made before in attributes, passing in damage. And what it'll do is remove damage from our health amount, and receive damage, if you remember, is clamped, right? That's what this does. So by the way, you can also peek definition here inline, so you can see what that looks like. So you don't have to actually go to definition. So you can see here that health, and this is it, we're peeking into attribute component without opening it. And you can see health is equal to health minus damage, whatever the damage is, and it's going to be clamped. That's what I was saying before. So that is what this handle damage does. Nice and simple. All right, nice. So now that we have that, let's go back to the enemy. So we've kind of like jumping around a bit, but we need to do this because we set things up in the health bar component first. Once we have that, then we go back to the enemy, and this is where we can do a lot of our work. So closed off this one, going back to the enemy, and then in the enemy.h, what we want to do is we want to add in the override. Here's the override for handle damage. So that's going to be inside of the protected section again. So I'm going to go back to, oops. I'm going to go back to that all the way at the bottom here. I'm just going to put it here again because we could have reorganized this, and maybe in another, kind of another day, if we had one more day of this, we could have reorganized everything, make it better. But here's where handle damage is going to be. Notice we say the same thing. It's the same name, virtual, has to be marked virtual, and it has to have override at the end. And once we've done this, we can make our own function that we want to override, here inside of our enemy, as opposed to accepting the same thing. So we know that handle damage receives damage on the attribute. So we want to keep this super call, and we want to add additional functionality, which is this. So for the enemy, because the enemy has a health bar widget, here it is, then the enemy's health bar widget is going to be something that we want to use. Notice that attributes doesn't compute, it's incomplete, which means we have to add in an include for the attributes component, which we added up here. So this is where the attributes comes in, right? Because we didn't have that for the enemy. So we just jump to that same thing, which is the handle damage. We just added that in. So there it is. So then damage amount comes in. We do everything we just said inside the base character.h, which is receive damage from the attribute, reduce the health amount. Then, because we're talking about the enemy has this health bar widget, and the health bar widget is going to be set health percentage based on the percentage from attributes. And again, if I wanted to see this one, I can peek definition, right? So if I want to peek at the definition, you can see that the get health percent, which is part of the attributes, returns the health divided by max health, which is a float health set health percentage. If I go to peek definition, set health percentage, which we say takes a float and then checks to see if the health bar widget exists. That's why we do this check, right? And if it does exist, then we just set the health bar percent here, and that's from the widget itself. So you can see how it cascades from one thing to the other. So that's handle damage for the enemy. And then let's continue to add functionality to the public section of the enemy.h. We'll come back to this. So that's the first part. We want to be able to take damage. So far we can apply damage. We're applying damage with the sword. If you remember, I probably don't remember, but item.h in the item class, we have an apply damage happening. And now we want to be able to receive the damage, and that we have to do that in the enemy. We have to do that for each enemy and player. For now, we're just doing it for the enemy. So copy this one. And from here, I'm going to go to enemy.h, and it's going to be in the public section this time. So it's way up here, right? I'm going to put that just under the get hit implementation right here. And then from there, I want to generate the definitions. Here it is. So handle damage, take damage is one thing. Take damage, I want to call handle damage, right? Because I just received damage. So handle damage, I'm going to take the damage amount that comes in from the class, this is a built-in. Take damage, actually, remember there's two things that are built in, apply damage and take damage. That's a built-in thing in Unreal Engine, because Unreal knows, they're smart, the people at Epic, they know that you're going to do damage, right? So here's damage, and then we take whatever the damage is, in our case 20 points. We're going to handle the damage, reduce the health if we can, and then the combat target we're going to say is whoever the event instigator is, we're going to get the pawn of that thing, whoever that is, and we're going to make that the combat target. Well, we never set the instigator here, so we're going to come back to this. But then we're going to return the damage amount. So take damage also returns a number. If you want to know what that damage is, you can actually read it from the take damage function, right? Wonderful. So take damage is something that we've just put in to the enemy. Next, what we want to do is in the enemy CPP file, we want to make some other changes. So let's continue with that. So I'm going to go to the initialize enemy function. So we're going to go there. Initialize enemy sets up stuff like the pawn sensing component and the radius, action radius, and so on. And we also spawn the default weapon here. This is where we're actually going to hide the health bar. By default, we don't want the health bar hidden. Like I said, a minimalist UI for the health bar. So I'm just going to put that here. So we're going to hide the health bar initially for the enemy. And then the next thing we want to do is when we get hit, we want to show the health bar. So again, in the get hit implementation, so if I go just jump there, get hit implementation for the enemy, here it is. Then just after the super call and before this if statement, I want to put in this, let's show the health bar. Okay, so we got hit, show the health bar. And this is where we clear the attack timer. Now I had some other suggestions here. For example, I've cleared the attack timer, player detected, and then I start the attack timer. It's not terrible. You know, that was my solution if I put that in as well. But that's kind of what I had in. And when we restart the attack timer again, is what I want to try and do there. So I think that's not bad. I'll put that in there as well. All right, so that is your get hit implementation. From there, some minor things that are going to happen in the item class now. And the reason why is because we want to get that instigator. I talked about, you know, we want to know whoever hits you, you're going to respond to, kind of thing. So again, what I want to do is I'm going to compile and save all, close down the enemy class for now, and then open up our item.h, or item.cpp actually. In the item.cpp, I want to go to the on-box overlap event. So again, item, I want to jump to the on-box overlap event. There it is. And remember what this does. When I'm overlapping with the box itself, this is the weapon box that's on top of the weapon, in this case the sword, right? Then I've got some information that I'm going to be dealing with. I'm just going to put this here just to make it a little bit more nice. There it is. And we do a box hit and a box trace, and then we have this apply damage right here. So notice that in our case, execute get hit is up here, and apply damage is down here. I'm just going to change the order of these things. I'm going to take this execute get hit, put this down here a little bit, just to do some minor changes, and pull the apply damage up. Now, the applied damage is using null pointer for event instigator, but I want to get the instigator controller. Okay, so let me explain why this is happening, right? Because the controller of the instigator is like the player controller. And if you look at the apply damage function, it says that the first thing is going to be the damaged actor, right? So that's other actor, right? The second thing is that's what this sword is doing. It's damaging something else. Then the base damage I'm doing, which is damage. Then the next part is an A controller pointer, so the controller pointer, right, which is the pawn controller, the actor controller, which is the event instigator. We don't have that. We have null pointer, so we have to get that changed. And so we're going to do get instigator, get controller, like this. Okay, so that's what we're going to put in there. And the rest stay the same. Everything else stays the same. Again, minor care. So this assigns the instigator to the owner of the weapon. That's what it is. Whoever has this thing, that is the instigator, right? And then the next part that I want is we need to change the equip function inside of the item. So, if I go to, we have equip item, we have equipped, this equipped. And the equip, I say equip function, but it should be actually equipped function. I'll be all right. The equipped function. So if I look at function equipped, we have equip item. That was the one I made you guys do, but here's the equipped function. When we set the owner to the character instigator, we should also set the instigator to the character instigator. So we'll set instigator to the character instigator, right? So what that does is because we're setting the instigator, so setting the instigator is a built-in thing in all pawns. You can do that, right? And until we do this, then set the instigator, which is a property that's being saved. And again, if I want to peak definition, just to show you, well, we can do that too. So what we're looking at now is the actor CPP that's built into Unreal Engine, right? So instigator, we have an instigator property that we're saving. All right, that's what we're doing here. And it's built into actor, the actor class. Until we do that, instigator is null pointer, right? Which is important to know. And remember what we just did earlier. If I save this and if I go back, what we were doing earlier is we're applying damage and we're getting the instigator. Well, if the instigator doesn't exist, right, then, then it's going to be null pointer and this thing will crash if we're trying to do this. So we don't want this. That's why we did these two steps. All right. Now, before we're almost there. We have a couple more slides after this. We need to rebuild our project and we want to add in UMG into the build.cs file. So again, save all, and we're going to go to our build.cs file, which is right here. And what we want to do here is we want to add in a comma and UMG, which is the Unreal's motion graphics module. And you need that because if you don't have that in, then you won't be able to do some of the things that we're asking to do. We're communicating between, between Visual Studio and Unreal Engine, C++ and Unreal Engine. Without this, we need this thing. It'll crash. It'll cause weird side effects. So, and there's a lot of includes that kind of will be incomplete and it won't work properly. So you need this. But as a result of this, what we need to do is we need to rebuild. So save all, and I'm going to close off, in this case, even Visual Studio. And what we need to do is that full rebuild. The way to do that, of course, is to do this safely, which is going into ICE12. And what I want to do is I want to get rid of intermediate, derived data cache, binaries, and the saved folders, remove them. And then I want to right click and I want to go to show more options and generate Visual Studio project file. So it regenerates those files. This is an important step. And then rebuild everything from scratch. And what this redoes is rebuilds the binaries and it includes everything that's in Visual Studio. Now you could do this sometimes. I haven't been successful doing this 100%. And if you're in the lab and using the lab computers, this is the way you'd have to do it. And that's why I'm showing it to you this way. But you would double click on this, which will rebuild the project. And if we did everything properly and we didn't mess up with anything, then it should rebuild everything and we should be good to go. And that UMG module, which is activated by default when you're in Unreal Engine, will now be activated in Visual Studio in C++. We'll have access to all that functionality. And if you didn't do this, then your project would never work properly. So just give it a chance to build as we're going through. And your system might build faster than mine or slower than mine. But if you follow the steps that I've just given you here, this should work. Emphasis on should. Again, it really depends on how you're setting up. And then after this, after we make sure that this all happens, this all works, we'll take a short break. Because this will be kind of the point where we have our enemies, health bar working, and then we'll get the player stuff going. So again, this is a new, this lesson is a new lesson that I've prepped for today. So again, we might run a little over time. I don't know how much time this is going to take, so, and I'll be honest because this is brand new. I've added in this for you guys for this semester. I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller. What's going on here? Ooh. All right. Okay, so there is this. Oh yeah, because we've lost all that stuff. So I'm gonna go edit, editor preferences, and then we're gonna do in main window because we lost all that stuff, and that's good. And then what we want to do is file save all right now. And I want to see what happens with our enemies. So now, steps to still do. Now that we've launched that, we should have this health bar widget in the enemy blueprint. Let's take a look at that. So I go to blueprints, enemy, and then the enemy's different because it's different than the character. So we should see it here, right? The health bar widget, right? And we don't, right? We don't see it here. So and if we don't see the health bar widget, what does that mean? That because it doesn't have it in, we missed a step. That's what it means, right? So if it's not here, right, then in the enemy widget, and because enemy inherits from our enemy stuff, let's make sure it's not here. And I'm not like, blind or whatever. You can see it's not here. So if it's not here, then it's not going to work, right? So that's a problem. And I didn't know what that means. So let's open up tools. Let's open up Visual Studio and see what's going on. See if I missed something. I may have. So take a very short break in a second. All right, so we rebuilt and it didn't crash, which is a good sign. I'm just going to close off the build tool and the item class. We don't care about that. That's all good to go. Also, my concern is the enemy.cpp. There's the enemy.h. And what I want to do is also look at the enemy.cpp. And my feeling is that we missed a step here because we didn't add it in here, right? Did I not add that in as a thing? Build tool. Thought we Thought I added it in. Well, that's a miss. You can't add an enemy. We can't add the thing unless it's added. So let's add it in. All right. So what we want to do is, because the enemy doesn't have it in, we never added it into the constructor function, right? So that's where it needs to be. So again, I'm going to put that kind of down in here. And we want to say that, so a couple things. In the enemy.h, it needs to exist, right? So if you look at the protected section down in here, zoom down here, we have this health bar component, right? And it's called health bar widget, but we never added it. We never did anything with this. This is the part that's missing. I'll add these slides in later. So health bar widget, what I want to say is, create default subobject of health bar. And notice it says set up attachment to the root component. We need to do this because if we don't attach this, I'm just going to copy this into your chat there for a second so you can see it, just in case yours doesn't do that. The reason why we need to do, we have to attach it to a root component is because if we don't, then you'll never see it. It's a visual component, right? It's not like the character movement component or something else that's not visual, like attributes. Attributes is not visual, so you don't have to add it in, but here we do, right? So that's the one thing we have to do. So now, that's the part that's missing. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to close this down. So File, Save All. And let's just relaunch Unreal Engine here for a second. Control F5. Because if you don't do this, it's never going to show because we never added it in, right? We never made a connection. Even though we've put a variable into the .h, we have to instantiate it, the widget itself, and we do that in the constructor function, right? So we never did that, and that's why it's not there. So that's a slide that I'm missing. I'm going to have to put that in. See what happens when you're constructing stuff? Dumb. That's dumb, Tom. Right, so. All right. Let's see how this works now. Okay, so here we're back in this, and now that we're back up, now let's take a look at the enemy one more time. And now we should see the health bar widget, which is right here. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So now that the health bar widget is there, then what we should see on the right-hand side is here, this widget class, which is important. It's exactly like we did last time. The widget class has to point to the widget blueprint. So if we look at the WBP, if I type in WBP, you can see widget, the widget blueprint health bar, which is right there. Let's add that in. There you go. And compile and save. Now, if we test it out, let's see what happens. If we grab our weapon, right? Or grab our weapon, and if we go up to this guy, and if we hit him, then we should see the widget blueprint. But look where it is. It's way down here. We didn't configure it yet, right? But this is cool. It's working, right? Except it's way over there. All right. So that's in world space. Okay. So let's configure it. Let's go back to enemy, and just like we did before. So if I looked at, now we could have done this in C++, by the way. Like we could have arranged the health bar itself to have a certain position and all that stuff. We're going to do it. So back to this. There we are. Notice that we put it at 100. So we're going to go into this. So if I look at the viewport, it looks like right here. Right, there it is. And we'll put this at 100. Way up here, top of his head, right? And then what we'll also do is space, the screen space. So once we do screen space, this will disappear. You won't see it anymore. So again, and again, if you think this is too big, we can change the scale, because this is quite large. Like if you look at the enemy, it's quite large. But if you run away from him, if you remember how this works, screen space is different than world space. World space stays the exact same size the entire time. So if I wanted this to be smaller, like I could scale it down. And if I was just to run it like this in world space, maybe it's too big. So maybe I'd make it like, let's just scale it so it's like, I don't know, half the size, like this, right? And if I did that, and if I ran it, then you can see that as soon as I hit him, this is just in world space. If I hit him, oh, there we go. It appears. Right there it is. Okay? And you can see that I've already like done all this damage already. Right? So that's the health bar. But I want to make it work. I don't want to make this work like this. I want to make this work in screen space, not in world space. So I'm going to go back to screen space. There it is. And then make it work again and see how what it looks like. Now, again, it's half the size, and that may not be what we want. So if I go here and hit him again, it appears, and you can see that he's got no health left. There we go. And it's there. Right now, what happens is it's pretty small, but what happens is he doesn't go away, and if I go through the wall, I see him there. Like he's got no health, but at least I see him. I think 0.5 is a pretty good size, right? Let me show you what it looks like one more time in world space, and then I'll stop this for things. So here's world space. So here's what happens with it, right? So if I was to hit him, right? So this is the disadvantage to doing it this way. If I did it with world space, hit him, it appears, and then if I run away and go behind a wall, I don't see it. When it comes near me, right? Then I see it. It's right there. Okay. And it's got a weird effect. Notice it's kind of like if I look from behind him, I don't see it, right? I only see it when it's here. See? It doesn't billboard. It just sits there. So whatever the enemy's facing, that's where that thing looks. So for me to make that health bar effective, what I'd have to do is I'd have to make it so that it billboards towards me every frame, right? So again, extra work, and that's why you don't have to do that if you do just screen space. But there's, again, like I said, in this case, it's advantages, disadvantages for doing screen space, right? So I kind of don't like the screen space, but we'll fix it, next semester when it's nicer, okay? So that is this. We know that it works, and we can do damage to the enemy now, and we can see the damage, kind of, and get feedback, that the damage is happening, right? So there it is, right? See how that nice. And then if I get him, you can see that in a couple hits, it's pretty much done. Okay. Excellent. All right, so that is our enemy's health bar, and we're able to do this now, and we're good to go. Let's put this up on DevOps. So File, Save All, and I'll close this off for now, and go back in here and do a full thing. So View Terminal, and we'll say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added health bar to enemy, which is what we did. We could have done more commits there, but I think it's pretty good in terms of everything else. All right, so we're sitting at around 9:40. Got lots more work to do. Let's take 5, and I'll get some coffee, and then when we come back, we'll continue with this insanity as we continue wrapping more and more functionality into our project.